everyone, this is Melissa, half of Tassie Stitches. Welcome back to our FlossTube channel. This is where we talk mostly about my cross stitch and also about the Down Under Divas challenges, and occasionally Kerrilyn will come on, but I haven't managed to get her to do that for quite a while. So if you're new here, welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. It has been a couple of weeks now since I managed to do a video. Last week stuff happened and it just wasn't going to happen, which was really frustrating because it was the changeover of the month. So today's going to be a bit messy. It's probably going to be a little bit longer, but let's just jump into where we're at. So we'll look at what temperature stitching I've done for the last 2 weeks. So temperature stitching, I use Jen the Caffeinated Crafter's version of Siska Stitches temperature stitching. So I have one whip assigned to the last digit of all the temperatures, so 10 whips all together, and I use that last digit to decide what I work on. So for the last week of February and the first week of March, here was the temperature stitching. So the first one up will be Letters from Hogwarts. So this is assigned to my number 9, and this came up once and only in February. So this piece is Letters from Hogwarts, like I said, from Cunning Cross Stitch. This was a free sale available on his Facebook page. It is no longer available. I believe he does have another free sale out there if you're interested in doing mystery sales. This is where I am on that now. So the 100 stitches was just filling in on the building here. I did a little bit of filling up in the trees and this little piece of green sticking out here. I actually realised there's a whole nother pumpkin to go there, so that'll probably get done in the near future. So this is being stitched on 32 count even weave, and it was a fabric that was dyed for me by Crafty Leanie. So that's Letters from Hogwarts. Next up was Baskets, and this is a piece by Rosewood Manor. This also got 100 stitches for February, and this is assigned to the number 8. So this is being stitched on a piece of 28 count. Actually, I think I've been saying 32, but it's 28 count even weave, and it's using the Valdani threads. I'm not a fan of those, but I've experienced them now. So there we go. And this is on a piece of donkey that I dyed myself, and the 100 stitches was up over here in this basket, in the flower section of this basket. So that's baskets. If I don't say, I do stitch all my pieces in the call for DMC, and depending on the fabric will be 1/1, 1/2, or 2/2, but I'll try and remember. Next up is Sampler Patchwork Square. So this is a piece by Nara X Stitch, and I have put that somewhere here. So this is assigned to the number 2, and this was called Twice in the last week of February, so it got 200 stitches, and this is being stitched 1/1 on 28 count even weave, and this is where it is now. So I'm stitching this diagonally in blocks going down in this direction, and then if a colour carries, I usually carry it until it runs out, but because these are separation lines on the pattern and they go all the way across or quite a long way across, I'm just taking them just past the next block or the next tile. So that's Sampler Patchwork Squares. And that again was just only called in February. So next up, I've got Artemis. Artemis was called Twice, and it's for the number 0. Yeah, number 0. It sounds weird to say that. 100 stitches for February and 100 stitches for March. And this is what it looks like. This is a piece by Alice Stitch. I bought this on a another crafty website. It was not Etsy, but something similar, and I can't remember what it was. But I've gone back and tried to find this designer, and her shop is closed, and I haven't been able to find her anywhere else. So let's just say this is discontinued. This is being stitched on 22 count. It's a really light green colour. I can't remember what the colourway is called, but it was dyed by Sugar and Spice, which was an Australian dyer who's no longer dyeing anymore. And the 200 stitches were done down here. So I brought down her leg, and then I brought down this inside piece of her toga. So that was 200 stitches on that one. And I'm just putting these away as I go, because otherwise I just end up with a big mess and I can't remember where everything goes. So that's that one. Then also that was called in February and March was Nature's King. So this was one of the Hayes sale from last year. The artwork is by Carol Cavallaris, and I'm stitching this on 28 count 1/1 as well. And this has had 300 stitches. It's assigned to the number 4. So 100 for February and 200 for March. And this is where it's at now. So at the moment, I'm just filling in the blocks on the end here to make full blocks. And then I'll probably just keep working over in columns. Sorry about all the park stitches. I am a parker. And the lines, they show up really badly on the video, but you can't see them in real life at all. So that's Nature's King. So then next up was Castle Sampler, or what I call Castle Sampler. It's actually called Sampler number 14, and this is by 2x2 Stitch Art on Etsy. I'm stitching this on a 40 count in the colourway Platinum from Zweigart, and I'm stitching this using a Silks for You pack, the winter pack from 2023. So it comes with 6 colours. Sorry about the light. And this got 200 stitches, 100 for February and 100 for March. And basically I finished off this side and then came over here and started doing the inside of that border. And that's like a really nice green colour. I really like the Silks for You threads. And this is, like I said, 1/1, one strand of silk over, one strand of silk over 2 strands of fabric on a 40 count. And then the next 2 were only called in March. So the first one is Northern Lights. So this is by Kerrilyn Manning Designs, and it's part of the Shooting Star collection. This got 100 stitches, and this is assigned to the number 7. And this is where it's at. And the 100 stitches were done in that really dark blue colour. I'm using that for indigo in one of the semi-sane challenges this month. So hopefully I'll be able to get, this gets called another 2 times in March so that I can complete that challenge for the indigo. And then lastly for temperature stitching is Art Deco Cafe. This has come out for its 2nd 1000 in temperature stitching, and it got 200 stitches in March. And this is where we're at now. And the 200 stitches were in green, so they were down on this part of the hat, and then I started doing this part of the hat here, and also the light green border. Move that out there. I don't think I said Northern Lights is 1/1 on 28 count, and this is a random piece of 25 count 1/1. It's just a piece of fabric I found at my LNS on their scrap table, and I thought this would look really good on it, just because sometimes I find I like to use a colour behind a full coverage if it makes sense. So that was temperature stitching for the last 2 weeks. I feel very overwhelmed with what's going on at the moment. So I'm going to leave the deck of whips call that was for the last week of February, and now we're going to look at the deck of whips call, and you'll see why in a minute. And we're going to look at the deck of whips call for this last week, which was the 10 of clubs, I believe. Yes, 10 of clubs. And for me, that was assigned to Amphitrite, which is this one. So Amphitrite is a piece by Bella Filipina. I'm stitching this on 28 count even weave in the colourway Sea Goddess that I dyed myself, and I'm stitching it in all the called for threads, so DMCs, watercolours and Krynics. And this got its 300 stitches for deck of whips. So this is where it's at all together, and the 300 stitches were all done in her Trident type tool, and they were the mauve stitches that you see there running down the top of that brown row in her Trident. So this was again used for the semi-seine get 300 stitches in violet. So both of those colours are called violet in some way for the DMC colour. So that was Amphitrite. So 300 stitches on that one to meet its deck of whips challenge. And then, as promised, last month I did have finish. So I managed to finish the piece that I'm stitching for my son, and that was Dinosaur. Now I don't know why I'm going to show you a picture, but I am. So this is from Oh My Stitches on Etsy, or Oh My Stitches shop. Now on Etsy I went back and had a look. Somebody asked the question about that. I have 10 of these to do. This is the third one that I finished. All of these are stitched on just white 22 count hardanger, 1/1, and that is where that is completely finished. To finish it, I put in 232 stitches, so not much at all. And I think that put it at around 1100 stitches for the month. So it didn't meet its 2000 stitch goal. But I think this was also called for deck of whips. So it got 1400 stitches in it last month, I think, just off the top of my head. So I really like how that's finished, and all of these are just going to be hoop finishes to hang up on my son's wall. So that was Dinosaur, and that was a finish. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I think the next one I'm starting, I think I mentioned last time, was the horse. And I'll show you a picture of that in the week that I actually started. So next up, I managed to finish all of my February goals. So I'll take you through those now. So the first one was Little Cake Shop, and that got its full 500 stitches in it. So Little Cake Shop is a piece by Haid, artwork by Amy Stewart. It is the max colour version, so lots of confetti. This is a very slow stitch, but not as slow as Rubber Ducky Dragon. This is being stitched on 25 count, 1/1, full cross, and this is where I am. So the 500 stitches finished off this row here, and then started down in this row. So when I stitch on this again, I should get out of the ceiling and back into the wall. So that'll be good. I've still got quite a bit of ceiling and quite a bit of wall to do. So that was Little Cake Shop. Then I finished off 13th Colony Bay. Now this is a piece by the Bay Needle Arts. And it's right on the floor. It's 3 patterns all stitched together. So I have stitched the middle pattern completely. And while this is off the Q-snap, I'll take advantage to show you the whole piece, where it is at. So this is where it is. As you can see, it's quite quite long. I think I can see that's all on there. So I've done that whole middle pattern, and then now I'm stitching, oh, you can't quite see it, it's not a good fold. There you go. And then I am working over on the side pattern now. Oh, sorry. And this is where I've been working over here. All the work has been done on this other side of the tree, that side of the tree. So the 400 stitches was kind of bringing that olive green down, filling in a bit of the light green, finishing off the buildings and doing some footpaths and things. Now, while I've got this one out, this is also a piece I'll be working on in March for Down Under Divas. I haven't done any stitching on this yet in March, so this is going to be used for a piece with a flag. So I don't think, well, you can just see here, all of the ships have flags. So this is being used for F for flag for 500 stitches in March. And this is what seems to happen with my pieces. They kind of get, and I don't know how because they don't work out the prompts based on what's in my stash. I should, but I don't. They seem to get called often all at once, and then I don't see them for the rest of the year. So that's 13th Colony Bay by the Bay Needle Arts. Next up, I finished in February, was Don't Feed the Plants. And this got its last 200 stitches. And the 200 stitches were done in pink. So down the bottom there, those pink stitches that you can see on screen, the 200 stitches. So I'm stitching this in the Called For Be Stitch Me silk threads, and it's 2/2 on a piece of 32 count that I dyed myself in the colourway Squished Elf. I don't think I mentioned 13th Colony Bay is on 32 count linen. It's a permanent linen, and I believe the colourway is French Rain. So that was Don't Feed the Plants by Ingleside Imaginarium. Next up, I worked on the Modern Folk Embroidery sale from 2021, Fruits of Plenty. So I'm stitching this in a different colourway than the picture. Mine is an orange and pink colourway, and the variegated thread being used is Dragonfly by Cottage Garden Threads in Australia. So in February, I was only stitching in Dragonfly, and so I've done 400 stitches to finish off my February goal. And then I've done another 200 stitches in March because this is also being used in March for a pattern that starts with F. So Fruits of Plenty starts with an F. So this is getting 2,000 stitches in March. So I've done 600 stitches altogether. And most of those have been done in the variegated thread. I finished off these flowers for... almost finished these flowers in February, and then completely finished them off in March. And then I've also done a little bit of orange stitching in March as well, but not much. So that's got another 1,800 stitches to go in it in March. So we'll be seeing that come out quite a bit, I'd say. Then I worked on Spring Garden Band Sampler. So Spring Garden Band Sampler is the sale this year from Stitching Cabin. I have finished the January and February bands now, and I've been working on the March band. I started actually the March band in February because I ran out of stitches in the January and February bands. So this finished off the stitches that were assigned to Dinosaur because that was a finish. So it got 913 stitches to finish off the Dinosaur prompt in February. And then I have used it for 100 stitches to finish off a weekly prompt for Fandom. In March, on the 1st of March, it got 100 stitches. Now those 100 stitches were not temperature stitching. This is also not getting its 300 spare deck of whip stitches this month either because there are 5 Mondays in March. But I do have a few, I think it's 600-ish unassigned stitches for March. So 100 of those have gone on to this to finish that prompt off. So this is where I'm at now. So like I said, I finished off the stems in January. I also filled in the gold treasure braid in January. Finished off the gumboot row, which was March, and then which was February, and now we're in March, which is the butterflies and this motif down the bottom here. This is being stitched on 40 count, 1/1, called for DMCs, and the fabric is the colourway Elizabeth, which I dyed myself. So that's Spring Garden Band Sampler. It's not been called for anything this month, so it could just be used for spare stitching, could be used for Fandom stitching, using those spare stitches, or temperatures if they come up. And then we come to Extraordinary Bird Sale. So this was the deck of whips that was called for the last week in February. So I've done the 300 stitches for that. But this has also been allocated to 2 prompts for March. So it's been allocated for a pattern starting with E, Extraordinary Bird Sale. So it's going to get 2,000 stitches for that. And it's also been assigned to E for egg. Because I'm not sure if you can see it, but underneath the cassowary over here, there's some green things and they are cassowary eggs. So this is being used for 500 stitches for E for egg. So this will get 2,500 stitches on it in March. So far it's got 300 on it from the deck of whips and 1,305 stitches so far for March. So I've done a lot of stitching on this. This was where I started. All the stitching has been done in the bottom section. And this is where I am now. So you can see I filled in the bottom of the aviary and I'm starting to fill in all of the greenery and dirt that's left in the frame down the bottom there. And so this has another 700 stitches to meet its 2,000 stitch prompt for March, and then it has another 500 stitches. So all up it'll be getting another 1,200 stitches for March. I don't think I'll find 1,200 stitches left over here. I might get another rest of the 700 over here, but that'll be close to get that. This is actually being stitched on a piece of 28 count fabric by Crafty Leanie. This was one of her fabrics of the month. I'll find out the colourway for you. I'm not sure if you can purchase her fabrics of the month once they've been and gone, and this is quite an old one. I haven't collected Crafty Leanie fabric for a while since I really started dyeing fabric myself. So that's 28 count, 2/2. Next up, that is all the stitching for February. So then let's do a combination of where I'm going and what I've already touched in February. So we've done E for Extraordinary Birds for 2,000 stitches, F for Fruits of Plenty for 2,000 stitches. The next one up is Patchwork Sampler, and I'm using this for a colour that starts with E or F. So I've gone through all of the DMC colour names and I have come up with Forest Green. I'm hoping I can get all my stitches done in Forest Green, but I can't. If I can't, then I'll just pick another colour because I'm just stitching this piece in lots of different random colours to match prompts when I need to. So this will get 1,000 stitches. Forest Green is this green here. So I've done all of those stitches so far this month, and that's 201 stitches. So this will get another 800 stitches for February. Hopefully there'll be enough in that motif, but based on what I've done, probably not. So we'll need to find another E or F colour. I've got some fuchsia being stitched up here that hasn't been finished yet, so I might finish that off and then see where we're at. But this is Patchwork Sampler by Yarn Helpman. I'm stitching this in random coloured DMCs. They're not the called for, just whatever I feel like. There are a couple of Semco colours on here. I think there's also some anchor colours on here. It's just really what I've got in stash when a colour prompt gets called that I can't meet on something else. So this is just a piece of 28 count or 32 count antique white even weave, so nothing fancy. So that's Patchwork Sampler. Next up is Black Vintage Sampler. And there it is. This is a piece by Our Forest Embroidery, but it's for designer starting with E or F, and somewhere in here, or here. Oh, I haven't got it with me. I think her name is Elena, or her surname is an E. I haven't got it with me, but I'll look it up and I'll let you know next time. But one of the designer's names, first or last, starts with an E, so that's why this one got picked. I'm stitching this in a random Silks for You thread that I got in a mystery pack, so I have no idea what the colourway is called. It's kind of a Halloween-y colourway. It's black, purple, green and orange. It's really beautiful. I'm stitching this 1/1 on 22 count in the colourway Dove that I dyed myself. So this has actually already received 400 stitches this month. And I don't know that I put a start picture in. No. So essentially, I've finished off this man's coat and come down and done his arm and his cane. And then I've done the Zeppelin up here. I think that's what they're called. And then this is a bat. So I've started on the bat. So all up, that was 400 stitches. So this has got 1,000 all up for the month. So another 600 to go on this one. So Black Vintage Sampler by Our Forest Embroidery. Then next up is They Come at Night. So this is again for a designer that starts with E or F because the colours this month were pretty hard. So this is by Fox and Rabbit, hence F for Fox and Rabbit. I'm stitching this on a piece of Crafty Leanie Fabric of the Month fabric again. This fabric is a 32 count Belfast and it's in the colourway Halloweeny for Crafty Leanie. I'm not doing it on black. I was going to do it on a dark colour, but I decided against it. So this is where I'm at. So 32 count linen, 2/2. Just coming down the side edge there. So this is my starting point. No stitches have gone into this yet for March, but it will get 1,000 stitches this month. And although it's not on a black or a charcoal fabric, I think that the colours will come out really nicely on this kind of darker purpley orange colour. Kind of remind me of flowers, the colour of flowers where you would see moths hanging out anyway. So that's why we went with that. And I didn't want to dye a piece of black or charcoal because I don't like dyeing black and charcoal. So that's where we're at. Then next up, we've got Rubber Ducky Dragon. So this is actually a penalty call for this month. I didn't have anything for Easter. So the next prompt is Easter for 500 stitches. I didn't have anything for Easter. And this was one of my whip go calls. So this is why this one got picked as my monthly free path. So it's not my penalty stitch piece, but it's my monthly free path. Just in case you're interested, my Fruits of Plenty sale was my other whip go. So that's why that got picked for F, because I do have a couple of other F projects, but that one won in the end because of whip go. So this was my whip go call for the month. If you're not aware of how I do whip go, I have my oldest 24 projects assigned to whip go, and I have annual goals, not monthly goals. I try and work on them in the month that they're called, but if I can't, it's not the end of the world. All of my whip bow pieces most of my whip go pieces have as a goal of 4,000 stitches. If they're a full coverage, or my full coverage this year have a goal of 5,000 stitches. And then there's a few pieces like Patchwork Sampler. My goal in that is just to touch it for 6 days. I have a couple of my 2 needlework pieces also just have goals of being touched for 6 days, and they're also on my whip go board. I haven't really met those 2 goals for the last couple of years, or a finish. So Dinosaur Circle or Dinosaur was one of my whip go pieces for this year, and that has now been finished. So that's being crossed off. So you saw Rubber Ducky Dragon last month. So see how my pieces, they get called. They just seem to all come together. So just as a reminder, this is my starting point on Rubber Ducky Dragon. This is on a piece of 25 count, just even weaving antique white, and I'm stitching this on the diagonal 1 stitch at a time. So it's super, super slow. It gives a really nice finish though, but I won't be stitching this way again. And I'm stitching this for a piece for Kerrilyn, my friend. So I'm over halfway on this. I should really try and give you all of my stats on these because they are in Pattern Keeper, but I'm not really good at that. Maybe I'll try that for next week. So that's where that one's at. And that was Easter, or a penalty for Easter. So then we've covered Egg, which was Extraordinary Bird Sale. And then next up is Eye. So lots of different pieces cover Eye. I have gone with the Pain Free Craft Sale from a few years ago. This was Wind in the Willows themed, and the artwork is by Chris Dunn. This is not my favourite piece. I'm stitching it on a 32 count. I think it's Witchilt linen. It's very stiff. I can't remember the colourway. It's a light green colour. I'll ask Kerrilyn, she'll remember what it is. This is where I'm at. And I don't know where I'll stitch, but lately I have been enjoying just doing the border. There is a challenge on semi-seine stitches to do as many green stitches as you can this month. So I might jump into the green full coverage area and do some green stitches there. It will just depend on my mood when I pull this out, because it's not my favourite. This is kind of a force myself to stitch on it stitch. So often I just want to get the stitches in and move on to something that I like to stitch on. But, you know, we can't like them all. And if I'd seen the whole pattern of that one before I started stitching on it, I probably wouldn't have started it. But I'd seen their previous sale with all of the dinosaur dragons and stuff on it, and I really liked that one. Not that I don't like the artwork on this. It's just, maybe different fabric also would have made a difference. But all in all, not my favourite, but we persevere. So 2/2, 32 count linen. I'll try and find out what colourway it is. But I'm pretty sure it's a Witchelt because it's quite stiff. Then, pandemic. So pandemic for F for fish. So hiding in pandemic, there is a fish. You can't really see it. I'll use this finger. But just here, there is a bird. And he has a fish in his mouth. So I'm stitching this on 32 count Zweigart Platinum fabric in random skeins of Silks for You thread that I have collected. So far, these have been ones that I've gotten from the Sassy Pouch when I first started that. If you don't know, myself and Kerrilyn and two of our friends were the founders of the Sassy Pouch, and we worked on that together for quite a few years. And then Kerrilyn and I chose to step away, and Juanita and Joy carried that on until I believe they recently stopped doing the Sassy Pouch. So these are mostly Sassy Pouch Silks for You to start off with, and then I'll just move on to other random skeins of Silks for You that I have. So I'm just picking a skein and working that skein until it runs out. The 500 stitches for this month, I'm working on this really pretty light rainbow colorway here in the middle, and I'll just be finishing off that motif. And then there's kind of a bordery type thing down here, so I might move down into that border. I see how I feel. Can't remember what's down here, so whether it makes sense to go down there or whether it makes sense to do this border, we'll just have to see. So this is 2/2 on 32 count Belfast in platinum, and that'll get, like I said, 500 stitches for F for fish. And of course, you saw that last month, and I think you also saw that in January. So you can see how they just kind of all come together. And that's a shame because I really like this one. I like seeing how all the different colours come out. And there's a few random, not so great colours coming up, like a red. So I'm not quite sure how they're going to fit in, but we'll see. So second last is F for flower. So again, like most of us, I had a lot of choices for F for flower. So I went with Louise Lallier. This is a reproduction sample by Reflect Dessois. I have done some stitching on this one this month. So this is the starting point. Again, I have used this for the Semi-Sane Rainbow Sow. And so I have done 200 stitches in red. And they have just here, these two red sections here. I opted not to bring the border down because I have counted down on that border before and made a massive counting mistake. So I wasn't prepared to count down to the next red flower. This was less counting. To get from the cross to here was less counting, so less chance of a mistake. This is being stitched in the called for Overa Soie threads. So this is my most expensive whip to date. It's on 1/2 threads of a 40 count in the colourway Dove that I have dyed myself. This is a really pretty piece. It's really not my cup of tea. I'm not a sampler person. I'm not an alphabet person. But it has a donkey. I don't know if you saw that. It has a donkey in the middle. So that's why I'm stitching this, because I like the donkey. Sometimes we have to step outside our comfort zone. Ladies, fancy ladies are also not my cup of tea, but I am doing a Bella Filipina, and I have done 2 Nora Corbetts in the past. They're obviously much smaller though. And then the last prompt for March we've already covered was 13th Colony Bay, and that was F for flag, so using the ships for the F. And then with the 5th being my husband's birthday, I also worked on his whip, which was or is Enterprise. So this is a piece by Cross Stitch Collective. I managed to get this. This was a free pattern that was available on the Lord Libidan site. I'm not sure if it is still available on the Lord Libidan site. I'm stitching this on black 32 count Belfast linen. 2/2 in the call for DMC. I don't mind doing the cross stitch on this, but there is a lot of back stitch to come. Not sure how I'll go with that because I have tried a little bit of back stitch and it was incredibly difficult. So I've just gone back to finding small patches of cross stitch. So on this one, I just brought this orange line. No, it was over here. It was this part. So I brought this orange over and up here. It's only 100 stitches, so it's not much. So I'll probably just keep working on predominantly cross stitch. I don't like to move the Q-snap when I bring this one out. So if I do all the cross stitch in an area, then I will move to a little bit of back stitch. But that's slow going. My goal for that is just to work on it 12 days in the year. It doesn't have a stitch count goal. Like my son's circles, they don't have stitch count goals either, just to touch them on their birthday. I try not to use them for prompts, but sometimes I don't have a choice. They're the only thing that fits. Again, not my favourite, so it doesn't get worked on unless it has to. So that was all of my progress for the last 2 weeks, plus my March plans. So let's look at temperature stitching and the temperature stitching that's coming up for the next week, including today. So the temperatures coming forecast are 18, 23, 24, 24, 17, 19, and 21. So that equates to 18 equates to baskets, which is this one. I'm not going to show you the whips again because it's messy. So I'll just keep filling in the ninja stitches for 100 stitches on this one. And again, this will stay in temperature stitching until it's finished. Then 23 is what I call Castle Sampler, but is Sampler 14 from 2x2 Stitch Art. So again, with this, I'll just continue filling in the border. This is in temperature stitching for 1,000 stitches, and once I hit that, we'll reevaluate. Then 24, or the number 4, is Nature's King. So this is artwork by Carol Cavalaris for the, get rid of that picture, for the hate sale from last year. This was called twice this week, so that'll, a week coming, so that'll get 200 stitches on it. So I'll just keep working down in that column like I have been. And then number 7 is Northern Lights, and oddly enough, this was the call for Thursday last week as well, because we had 27 last Thursday and 17 predicted for this Thursday. So I'll keep working with that indigo dark blue colour, and so I'm working up in the top of this piece, right up the very top, kind of in the middle, slightly, in the middle. And then 19, the number 9, that is Harry Potter, or what I call Harry Potter, which is Letters from Hogwarts. So I'll probably still work in that same area. I won't move the Q-snap, and it'll probably be working on that pumpkin and just filling in some other ninja stitches and maybe some back stitches on, the animal. I can't remember what that animal is called, and I should know, but I can't remember. So that'll get 100 stitches, and then last but not least is Art Deco Cafe, and this is assigned to the number 1, and that will also get 100 stitches. So I'll probably just continue on doing the green in her hat, which includes that light green border coming down. So that's temperature stitching. So the only last thing to do is to do deck of whips for the week. So I'll give the cards a shuffle. I hope I haven't forgotten anything. I don't really like leaving it for 2 weeks now. It becomes too much to remember. And also with the month changing as well. Yeah, it was pretty full on. So the whip or the card for deck of whips, I'm just going to bring up mine for this coming week, is the 7 of spades. We really like the black cards lately. So that is Band of Braves. I will go and grab that and show you where I'm up to, but it's also one of my current temperature stitches, but not called for next week. So I'll just go and grab that and I'll show you where I'm up to. Okay, so because this is a temperature stitch, I've got the picture there. So this is Band of Braves by Long Dog Sampler. I'm stitching this on a 32 count even weave in the colourway galvanised bucket that I stitched myself. 2/2 called for DMCs. This is where I'm up to. So the 300 stitches will all go into this bison band. Whereabouts, I don't know. I am currently working on the grass beneath this bison, so it'll probably be in that bison or around that bison where I work. So that's Band of Braves, that's my deck of whips. That'll get 300 stitches in the coming week. See, even with my deck of whips, it's the same ones that are getting called, and I've got 53, not quite. Currently, I think I've got 48, 49 projects on the go. So there's a lot you haven't seen yet this year, and they're just not coming up for stuff. Hopefully next month we will see a few new things, but maybe not. We'll just have to see. Thanks very much for sticking it out if you've made it to the end. This was a long one. I hope you're enjoying your March stitching for Down Under Divas, or if you're not stitching for Down Under Divas, that you're enjoying your stitching in general. If you are like me and you do set yourself goals, whether they're small weekly or monthly goals or larger yearly goals, it's always nice to work towards a goal, but don't stress yourself out if you can't meet it. It's not worth it. Trust me. So again, thanks for being here and all going well. We'll see you next week. Bye.